Thingkho Le Malcha by KSO Media and Documentation Cell. Issue number 80, Thursday, 30 November 2023. Headlines: 38 families refuse aid. SC panel says civil society organizations obstructing process. Meitei newspaper falls prey to fake press release. Lamka MLAs hold crucial meeting with district administration. Armed men loot 18.85 rupees crore from Okral Bank. Mayday public protest over SP transfer in Thobel. Staged surrender of looted arms. Cookies in the limelight. Honoring diversity in Nagaland's Hornbill Festival. 375 more Myanmar nationals enter Manipur. Refugees in state rises to around 1,400. 30 more Myanmar soldiers repatriated via Moor in Manipur. Kam Konswan housing on why Manipur is up in flames. Thingkho Le Malcha. Relief Center update. B. Vainam KBC Relief Center. Malnam KCC, Lamka. Managed by Kuki Konglai Lamp. General Headquarter, KKLGHQ. Total inmates registered, 295. Male, 139. Female, 156. Kuki victims update AS on November 25, 2023. Deaths, 153. Villages burnt, 200 plus. Houses burnt, 7,000 plus. Churches and synagogues burnt, 360. Displaced persons, 41,425. With at least 38 families refusing to accept the government's 10 rupees lakh compensation for those killed in the ethnic violence in Manipur, the Supreme Court-appointed panel is learned to have sought directions from the court to prohibit civil society organizations from interfering with or obstructing the process. While the district administration is trying to persuade the families, the panel headed by former Jammu and Kashmir High Court Chief Justice Geeta Mittal is learned to have sought the court's directions to get them to accept the ex gratia payment. In its 14th report, submitted on October 21st, the committee is also learned to have sought another direction from the court to prohibit the civil society organizations from interfering with and/or obstructing the next of kin and accepting the ex gratia amounts. The case will be heard again by a bench headed by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud on December 4th. The Supreme Court had appointed the three-member committee, which includes former Bombay High Court Judge, Justice Shalini P. Joshi, and former Delhi High Court Judge, Justice Asha Menon, to examine the humanitarian aspects of the ethnic violence in Manipur. The committee has informed the Supreme Court that according to the state government records, 175 deaths had been reported till October 7th, of which the victims had been identified in 169 cases. The ex gratia compensation has been given as direct benefit transfer in 73 of the 169 identified cases. In the remaining 96 cases, verification is pending in 58 cases, while 38 families have expressed unwillingness to receive the assistance. The refusal, the committee noted, is due to pressure from civil society organizations like UNLF, JPO, Kim, etc. Of these 38 families, 13 are in Chirachandpur, 13 in Imphal West, 9 in Kangpokpi, and 3 in Thingkho districts. The Manipur government had announced an ex gratia payment of 10 rupees lakh for the families of those killed in the violence since May 3rd. While the state government contributes half of the compensation, the Union Home Ministry contributes the remaining amount. Source: The Indian Express. The Meitei media houses, intentionally or unintentionally, have the habit of publishing fake press statement without verifying the authenticity of its content. They usually fall prey to morphed image or edited version of the press statement, especially concerning the cookies. The Meitei media houses enthusiastically picked fake or edited version of press statement of the Kuki CISOs for their selfish agenda just to malign the image of Kuki CISOs. The fake press statements were released by the Meitei themselves by misappropriating the content of the press release, using the organization's letterhead and signature. Kangli Paki Mira, an Imphal-based Manipuri newspaper, on Thursday carried a news item of the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum stating that anyone participate in Kuki's own nationwide rally will be fined some 450 rupees and 1 kilogram pork per person. This statement of the ITLF was released on November 28th, requesting all the Kukizo people to participate in the November 29th nationwide rally organized by the Zo United across the country. The original press statement of the forum never mentioned about the imposition of fine and cash, or kind to anyone who abstained from the rally. However, some Meitei miscreants with mischievous mindset edited/altered/manipulated the original press statement and added few more lines to tarnish the image of the forum. The Meitei's mischievous agenda has been fully attested by their media pick. News report by Kangli Paki Mira houses, acting as agents of fake news dissemination based on the fake press release by publishing unverified or fake press statement. An important meeting of MLAs from Lamka and key officers of the district led by Deputy Commissioner and Superintendent of Police was held today at 3 p.m. at the residence of LM Kot, MLA, Churachandpur 58A, C at Lamka. During the meeting, the issues faced by students of Churachandpur Medical College, the displaced medical students, PG students, dental students, etc., were discussed in presence of several parents of the affected students. The meeting discussed ways and means of addressing the genuine problems of medical and engineering students on top priority. The meeting also discussed about traffic management and other related problems in the town apart from pressing issues concerning town management. The MLAs, DC, and SP of the district had a detailed discussion on security issues pertaining to strengthening of security in the buffer zone. Further, the meeting also discussed improvement in the overall administration of the district and for giving prompt attention to various difficulties faced by the general public in this trying time. The MLAs expressed their resolve to continue to monitor the functioning of all departments in the district in the coming months in the interest of the general public. The MLAs also advised the DC and SP to continue to work hard and be responsive to the grievances of the general public. They also expressed their intention to continue to take up with the central government authorities all issues affecting the interest of the common people that requires the central government's intervention in the coming days. In a shocking incident, around 18.85 rupees crore was reportedly looted by unidentified armed persons from the Punjab National Bank, PNB, located at Viewland in Ukhrul district, Manipur, on Thursday evening. The bank is located right in the heart of Ukhrul town. As per reliable sources, the incident took place at around 5:30 p.m. when around 10 masked men who were well-armed suddenly barged into the bank from the back door. At the time of the incident, a total of 10 staff were present. However, they were quickly handcuffed. A gunfight, the miscreants looted the bank. Soon after the report of bank loot was received, the Ukhrul police team rushed to the spot. Investigation is underway. Pandemonium prevailed in Thawbal on Wednesday as Mira Pibus of the district took to the streets protesting the recent abrupt transfer of Thawbal District Police SP Sachinanda Soibum and appointment of one Rakush Balwa, a non-Manipuri, as the new SP. According to sources, Mira Pibus and womenfolk carried out mass protests in various areas across the district. A mob reportedly stormed Thawbal DC office to meet DC Ahantham Subhash around 3 p.m. One Mira Pibi Okram Soradoni condemned the recent sudden transfer of the Thawbal SP and appointment of a non-local as the new SP amid the prevailing tense situation in the state, adding that the locals of the district are not acquainted with a totally different language. TLM views the Métis protest against the posting a non-local officer only smack of government transfer and posting policy. If the Métis could demand only posting of a Métis officer in their area, the Kukis too have a number of central service personnel who could handle the district administration, and they can make the same demand. The Kukis had similar protests too in Dingpi area under Kingjoy subdivision in Chundel district on September 2nd against the proposed deployment of Assam Rifles unit under the command of a Métis officer at Salin, Chundel district. However, despite strong opposition from the locals, the government went ahead with the normal routine posting. If the Métis demand for similar protest is accepted, this will only justify the tag on state government as a government only for the majority Métis. Let the government transfer all the Métis IPS/MPS officers as SPs in Métis-dominated Impole Valley districts and all the Kuki IPS/MPS officers as SPs in Kuki-dominated Hill district, so that we can govern ourselves in our respective ancestral lands. On November 29, 2023, the United National Liberation Front, or UNLF, PAMB, reached an agreement with the Métis government and with the Union government to cease operations against each other. The UNLF, PAMB, has been driven out of Myanmar by the PDF and the KNAB and are urgently seeking a safe haven in Manipur. Indian Express had succinctly put this pressure faced by the terrorist group as being on the back foot, with mounting attacks against the junta by various ethnic armed organizations EOs and People's Defense Forces PDFs. From the video clips provided in various social media, 90% of the surrendered weapons of the UNLF PAMB appeared to be vintage 7.62mm SLR rifles which could have been previously handed over to the Métis terrorists by the Métis, IRBs, and Métis police. Such weapons are definitely not the weapon of choice of UNLF, where the cadres are fully equipped with AKs, M-series guns, LMGs, MMGs, rocket launchers, sniper, etc. Every weapon has its unique body number /S, and the numbers will definitely establish whether the weapons were the looted ones, and by that extension whether the surrender was staged. It is also surprising that there are no proper ground rules for such surrender. The government has stated that a peace monitoring committee will be constituted for the enforcement of agreed ground rules. But as the Indian Express reported, these ground rules and the terms of the agreement have not been made public. No transparency has been maintained, and this act of surrender may be a plan to give a free hand to UNLF to decimate the Kukis and to grab their lands, which the Métis government has not been able to grab through the unlawful acts it had passed in the name of forest conservation. The Hornbill Festival is a significant cultural festival held annually in Nagaland, usually in the first week of December. This year's celebration starts from tomorrow, i.e. on the December 1st till the 10th of December. The festival typically includes a variety of cultural performances, indigenous games, traditional music, dances, and a display of local crafts and cuisine. It showcases the rich cultural heritage, traditions, and customs of the true indigenous Nagas and other indigenous tribes of Nagaland. The Kukis, too, are recognized as one of the indigenous tribes of Nagaland, unlike some tribes who recognize themselves as Nagas in Manipur. It is an admirable and heartwarming gesture of the Nagaland government for time and again throughout the years of celebration has always included the Kukis at this grand festival. Even in this year's Hornbill Festival, in one of the posters, a Kuki couple adorned with traditional Kuki attire with bangles and a musket is put at the center stage. And the background of the poster is designed with the pattern found in Saipakup, one of the traditional attires worn by the Kukis, which the Métis recently tried to shamelessly rebrand as their own. Kukis in Nagaland have contributed towards the formation of Nagaland State. After the formation of the state in many capacities, the Kukis have helped build Nagaland. Many Kukis are there at the top echelons, be it in administration, education, business, and politics. We, the team from TLM and KSO GHQ, wishes the people of Nagaland a happy and joyous Hornbill Festival. We would love to come and experience all the exciting events, but unfortunately situation in Kuki ancestral land is hindering us from attending the festival. Nevertheless, may the presence of our Kuki brethren in Nagaland represent us on this auspicious festival. God bless Hornbill Festival. God bless Nagaland. 375 more Myanmarese nationals have entered Manipur via the porous international border between India and Myanmar in Kamjong district of the state. These Myanmarese nationals entered Manipur fleeing the fighting between the army and pro-democracy rebel forces in the neighboring country. The total number of Myanmar refugees taking shelter in Manipur has risen to around 1,400. The number of refugees increased manifold after bombardment of several villages across the border by Myanmar military as a part of its actions to flush out the ethnic rebels in the past few days. Manipur shares a 398 km long international border with Myanmar, of which Kamjong district shares a 104 long stretch from border pillar number 90 in the Namli area under Kasem block to Kachufeng village BP number 112 under Sahamfung block. Interestingly, the border fencing works have mainly been under progress at the Thingkho district of Manipur. Around 16 kilometers of border in this district has reportedly been completed so far, the officials said. These refugees are taking shelter at the relief camps of Phako, Karenram, Huayman Thana, Namli, Wangli, and Ashong Kulin in Kamjong district of Manipur. 30 more soldiers of the Myanmar army have been repatriated to the neighboring country by the Indian authorities via the Moor border town in Manipur. The 30 Myanmar army soldiers were sent back to their home country on Wednesday, November 29th. These 30 Myanmar army soldiers had fled their bases and entered into the northeast Indian state of Mizoram after their camp was overrun by pro-democratic rebel forces in Myanmar. They were taking refuge at Tupang village in Siaha district of Mizoram after their camps at Motupi and Chin state fell to armed pro-democracy forces. The repatriated 30 Myanmar soldiers also included an officer. The soldiers were airlifted by 2 Indian Air Force helicopters from Siaha district in Mizoram and taken to Moor town in Manipur, bordering Myanmar. Then they were handed over to the Myanmar Military Authority. Kamkon Swan housing on why Manipur is up in flames. Since May 3rd, the northeast Indian state of Manipur has been convulsed in violence, with the majority Métis ethnic group, which lives in the Impole Valley, clashing with the Kukizomi indigenous people, who mainly reside in the hills. The immediate spark for the violence was the Manipur High Court directive to the Biren Singh-led Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP) government to take a call on granting the largely Hindu Métis affirmative action benefits under the scheduled tribe grouping, which will give them greater access to education, jobs, and land rights. While the violence erupted suddenly, it was preceded by a systematic majoritarian and integrationist campaign by Chief Minister Biren Singh's government for short-term electoral gains. In his interview with the Diplomat's South Asia editor Sudha Ramachandran, Professor Kamkon Swan Housing, a noted political analyst and head of the Department of Political Science at the University of Hyderabad, India, said that, far from being unpredictable, spontaneous, and unpreventable, the violence followed a clearly established pattern. The state prepared the intuitional ecosystem for riots. Not only did the state prepare, activate, and sustain the conflict in collusion with majoritarian-minded groups, but also, it is providing explanatory justification for the violence, he argued. Read the full interview below. Could you provide us with a brief overview of the conflict underlying the recent violence in Manipur? The immediate spark to the ethnopolitical conflicts that we have seen since May 3rd, in which transformed large parts of Manipur into killing fields, was provided by violent counter-blockade rallies organized by various Métis civil society organizations (CISOs) against the peaceful protest rallies organized by the All-Tribal Students' Union, Manipur, Atsum, comprising of Kuki, Naga, Mar, and Zomi tribal groups. The Atsum rallies sought to protect tribal land rights in the extant sub-state constitutional asymmetrical institutions, which have been either routinely sidestepped or sought to be dissolved by the aggressive integrationist and majoritarian policies of the state, with the active support of majoritarian-minded Métis CISOs. Once violence erupted, the conflicts transformed into Métis and Kuki Zomi. Hereafter, Zo people, ethnopolitical conflicts even as the Naga groups remain largely unaffected as bystanders. The conflicts have followed a clearly established pattern of organized orgies of ethnic cleansing and genocidal attacks on the Zo people largely executed by Métis ragtag mobs and radical groups Métis Lipan, and a rambam tingle either with the complicity of the state or active involvement of its police. The retaliatory attacks launched by Zo mobs on the Métis also bear the imprint of ethnic cleansing of the latter in the hills, albeit with asymmetrical outcomes. Tell us about the Manipur government's majoritarian integrationist project in the state, which preceded the violence. The recent wave of violence between the Métis and the Zo people in Manipur, which started on May 3rd, is a culmination of an aggressive majoritarian and integrationist project that the Biren Singh-led BJP government has undertaken since coming to power in March 2017 for short-term electoral gains. This project skillfully mixes a radical neo-Métis indigenous religion synonymity and majoritarian appeal with developmentalist politics to either sidestep or dissolve extant sub-state constitutional asymmetry that the Hill tribal people enjoy under Article 371C, the district councils and land rights. It leverages a series of sacralization projects in the hills to appeal to the sizable majoritarian-minded Métis electoral constituency in the valley, while simultaneously co-opting pliable Hill tribal leaders by selling them development dreams. In October 2022, for example, Chief Minister Singh inaugurated the Chandra Kurdi Memorial Park in Chivu, located on the Indo-Myanmar border. This is the site where the Zo chief Go Kha Tang was treacherously captured before being killed in Imphal in 1872 while in the custody of the Métis monarch Chandra Kurdi. Despite a strong undercurrent of popular opposition among the Zo people Kuki Chinlu Shai, Singh co-opted pliant tribal leaders to go ahead with the memorial park to consolidate his electoral appeal among the Métis, to project himself as an inclusive leader, and consolidate his leadership position against factional challenge within the BJP. Singh forged a broader social and political coalition through his pet political project, Go to the Hills. His political rhetoric was initially useful in co-opting pliant tribal leaders and projecting his intent to bridge the Hills-Valley divide. Towards this end, several customized centrally sponsored developmental projects were inaugurated and cabinet meetings were held in the hills. However, the real intent of this project began unraveling soon enough. Using a 1990 government order, which declared the state acquired tribal land around the Chivasalt Lake in the Indo-Myanmar border not only as a protected site but also as a place where Tangjing, a Métis god, is intermittently sighted. Chief Minister Singh got a stone monolith erected inside the park as part of his sacralization project. Similar sacralization projects were implemented in the Cobra Hills and Kangpokpi district by invoking Cobra Hills as a Lifam, the seat of Lay Ningtho, the Métis principal god, and aggressively promoting religious pilgrimage to this site under the auspices of Métis Lipan, a radical group. These are seen as calibrated attempts by the Métis-dominated state to snatch tribal lands. The BJP government followed up with land surveys in the hill areas, which culminated in tribals being targeted and evicted as encroachers, illegal immigrants, and poppy cultivators. Clearly, the state was bypassing the Hill Areas Committee, HAC, a constitutional body mandated to vet matters pertaining to scheduled tribe areas. It also sought to dilute the HAC's composition by including non-tribals. Such moves have deepened the sense of powerlessness of the tribal people. Then, on the night of April 11th this year, 3 tribal churches in Imphal were demolished, despite the fact that they have legal documents. Under the Public Premises, Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants, Act 1971, no building may be demolished after sunset and before sunrise, that too without giving prior notification and sufficient time of appeal. The state's one-sided law enforcement brings its integrationist and majoritarian project into sharper relief if we compare its refusal to regularize even a single tribal church against the 188 Meitei Hindu temples that were regularized. After the Supreme Court directed all Indian states to review public buildings via the State of Gujarat versus Union of India case, 2009. So what set off the violence? The last straw that broke the camel's back came when the Manipur High Court directed the government to make its stand clear on the Meitei demand for Scheduled Tribe (ST) status within 4 weeks. Several protest rallies were organized under the auspices of All Tribal Students' Union, Manipur on May 3 in various hill towns to impress upon governments in Imphal and New Delhi that the tribals see in the Meitei demand an attempt to secure ST status over and above the 3 affirmative action benefits they already secured under other categorizations as yet another means to snatch tribal lands. These protest rallies were peaceful, yet they were met with counter-blockades by various Meitei civil society organizations in various parts of the valley. Meitei miscreants burned down the Anglo-Kuki War, 1917-19, Centenary Memorial Gate at Lei Sang Village, and beat up Kuki boys returning from a protest rally. Such incidents escalated into mob fighting. As the Meitei mobs burned down some Vai-speaking houses in Kangvai village later, the ethnopolitical conflict spread like wildfire and transformed large parts of the state into killing fields. In your writings on the riots in Manipur, you have drawn attention to American political scientist Paul Brass' concept of the institutionalized riot system. How does this concept apply to Manipur? Far from being unpredictable, spontaneous, and unpreventable, the recent wave of violence in Manipur followed a clearly established pattern, which Paul Brass described as an institutionalized riot system, where the state prepared the institutional ecosystem for riots by aggressively pushing its integrationist and majoritarian agenda described above. This agenda not only overlaps with but also gets reinforced by similar agendas undertaken by majoritarian-minded Meitei CISOs and radical Meitei groups like the Meitei Lipan and Arambai Tangle, which aim to restore the past glory of Kanglipak, the Meitei indigenous term for the state, before the Kingdom of Manipur merged with India in 1949. Although these groups inherit a radical project and work as marionettes of proscribed valley-based militant organizations that promote anti-India, anti-Hindi, and anti-Hindu agendas and oppose the Hinduization of Meitei society, Singh and the BJP are patronizing them for short-term electoral gains. He is playing with fire. In a Facebook post of April 28, 2023, Pramit Singh, a prominent leader of the Meitei Lipan, instigated his followers to annihilate our traditional rival on the hills, i.e., the Kuki-Zomi people. A longitudinal comparison of the social media post of Chief Minister Singh with that of these organizations is almost indistinguishable in terms of the communal expletives used to target the Kukis as foreigners, illegal immigrants, encroachers, and poppy cultivators. Similar communal expletives abound in the social media posts of various hill-based organizations. Evidently, both are in dialogical relations with one another over time. Singh's government prepared the stage for the violence by collecting licensed guns from people in the hills from February-March 2023 on the pretext of re-verification of licenses. That the riots started with active state complicity became apparent as it imposed shoot-at-sight orders at the rioting mobs only in the latter half of the second day of the violence. In effect, the ragtag mobs were given a full night and another day's time to accomplish their ethnic cleansing drive and genocidal attacks against the Zo people in areas of the Imphal Valley. Similar counter-ethnic cleansing drives were made by mobs in the hill areas despite the fact that the Draconian Armed Forces Special Powers Act 1958 has been in place for quite some time. Interestingly, this busted the myth that the Meiteis do not have land ownership rights in the hills. The state and majoritarian-minded Meitei intellectuals and CISO leaders are now providing explanatory justifications for the violence. They claim the conflict is an outcome of an organized political project that armed ethno-nationalist movements in the hills unleashed to cover up their alleged poppy plantation. Such allegations are plausible, yet they conveniently gloss over the fact that most of the drug lords hail from the valley areas and function with the tacit support and connivance of the state and valley-based proscribed armed insurgent groups. On the contrary, the Zo tribal groups contend that these conflicts have indelible marks of the state, which prepared, activated, and sustained the conflicts in collusion with majoritarian-minded Meitei CISOs and valley-based armed groups to further deepen its integrationist and majoritarian agenda. Clearly, the current wave of conflicts in Manipur presents a classic textbook case of institutionalized riot system. While Manipur's majority Meitei are Hindus, the Kukis who bore the brunt of mob violence are Christians. What role did religious communalism play in the violence? Have Hindutva groups been mobilizing the Meitei? Evidently, The burning of over a dozen tribal churches in Imphal on the first night of the riots itself was a deliberate strategy to send out a favorable signal to New Delhi that it was a Hindu-Christian conflagration. But on close scrutiny, it became apparent that Meitei Lipun, a radicalized Sanamahi, indigenous religion-oriented Meitei organizations, and other CISOs were mobilized over time to prepare the ground for and execute the state's integrationist and majoritarian agenda with the active support of people in power. The aggressive religious pilgrimage Meitei Lipun organized in Cobra Hills and the various Chingkaba mountain/hill climbing initiatives these organizations launched to sacralize Tangjing Hills and others in the hill areas were carefully calibrated in ways that promote this agenda. A similar drive to radicalize Arambam Tangle through carefully crafted arms training under the patronage of Sanajaba, the incumbent Rajya Sabha MP of the state, became particularly handy in the recent conflagrations. This period also marked the expansion of San Parivar networks in the state, although their impact on electorally mobilizing the Meiteis remains to be seen. In his book, Ethnic Conflict and Civil Society, Ashutosh Varshney had argued that intercommunal networks prevent ethnic violence. Manipur has a strong civil society. What role has it played to prevent ethnic violence? Unfortunately, civil society groups in Manipur are far too communalized to play the kind of conflict-preventing role that Varshney outlined in his book. Manipur has dozens of militant groups. Are they involved in the current violence? Credible reports in both the hills and valley areas suggest that armed groups are playing an active role in the violence. The fact that both sides of the divide have asymmetrical access to police ammunition depots early on made these conflicts much more lethal. Manipur is located in a restive region. Could the recent violence spill over to other states? That the conflict is likely to set ablaze the tinderbox of fragile intercommunal relations became apparent a day after violence erupted in Manipur, when skirmishes between Meitei and Zo groups in Shillong, Meghalaya state were reported on May 4. Given that both these groups are spread out across various other northeastern states and metropolitan cities of India, the chances of the outbreak of similar conflicts is likely, especially since mutual hate and suspicion are running deep. First published by The Diplomat.